Welcome to Blooming Wand, your home for grounded spiritual content. I'm Emily O'Neill, evidential psychic medium, intuitive healer, and mentor. And on today's episode, I want to talk about guardian angels and why we love them. And I'm going to trace our enduring bond with these celestial protectors. Did you know that roughly 70% of American adults believe in angels? And this is a figure that, according to a 2023 study by the Associated Press and the NORC Center for Public Affairs Research, says surpasses the number of people who believe in the devil or hell. Fascinatingly, angels have a broad appeal that crosses secular lines. Many people who reject organized religion and traditional theology entirely still believe in angels, proving the concept resonates far beyond regular churchgoers. Guardian angels have outlasted countless theological concepts. They thrive in an age of scientific materialism when so much religious belief has faded. Why is that? Join me as I explore the enduring appeal of guardian angels. Let's dive in. When I think back to childhood, I can remember believing in guardian angels. I accepted their existence quite easily. It was just the way it was. Angels existed, and they were meant to help me. I mostly heard about angels in a religious context and saw them in various paintings, usually ones with a child crossing a rickety bridge and with an angel hovering protectively over them. Raise your hand if you saw those angel pictures when you were a kid. I know I did. That said, it never felt like I was experiencing Christian angels. To me, they existed outside the boundaries of any single tradition. Simply put, they always felt like majestic divine presences meant to protect and guide me. That childhood intuition, it turns out, tracks both with human psychology and the archaeological record. Angels are older than you think. That intuitive sense that guardian angels belong to a lineage older than Christianity is supported by the archaeological record. Long before the Bible was written, or the formal rise of Judaism and Christianity, the human imagination was already populated with winged protectors. On the walls of ancient Mesopotamian palaces, some dating back to the 10th century BCE, stood the lamassu, massive stone sentinels with human heads, the powerful bodies of bulls or lions, and towering feathered wings. Art historian Gunnar Barrefelt documented how these beings served as guardians, sacred guardians, noting that the wings symbolized the supernatural speed and nature of these divine protectors. The statues were positioned at thresholds to protect what was sacred and bridge the gap between earthly and divine realms. Protective spirits are a universal thread in ancient spirituality. The Egyptians spoke of the Ka, a vital life force created at birth that journeyed with the soul into the afterlife. For the Greeks, there were the daimons, guiding intermediaries who bridged the gap between mortals and the divine. And the Romans refined this further with the genius, a personal guardian and creative spark, I love that attended every individual from their first breath to their last. There were the ancient Zoroastrians, and they crystallized the concept of the guardian angel around 600 BCE with the Favrashi. As religious scholar Mary Boyce explains, these guardian spirits originally, quote, patrolled the boundaries of the ramparts of heaven, but voluntarily descended to earth to protect individuals throughout their lives. The enduring nature of this idea suggests it satisfies a deep, persistent need in human consciousness to feel accompanied and protected. And this idea spread. Religious historian David Albert Jones notes that the concept evolved as, quote, Judaism encountered Persian religious ideas during and after the Babylonian exile. So where you have trade, where you have conflict, where you have people mingling across borders, ideas tend to spread. And this is what happened with the Favrashi concept, and it would eventually become what would be thought of as the biblical guardian angel, or just kind of the guardian angels that really took hold in human consciousness. Now, I want to point out what the Bible actually says about guardian angels, and I can tell you it's subtle. Scripture is notably kind of subtle regarding guardian angels. The specific phrase guardian angel never actually appears in the text. Instead, the Bible offers something more like a mosaic of scattered references, including moments of sudden divine protection or angels dispatched for temporary, specific missions. However, one verse became the foundational pillar for this belief. In Matthew 18:10, Jesus warns, "See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I say to you that in heaven their angels always see the face of my Father who is in heaven." It was the early church fathers in the 3rd and 4th century, so think theologians like Origen and Jerome, who popularized the idea that every soul is assigned an angel at birth. By 1615, the Catholic Church had formalized the Feast of Guardian Angels in the Roman calendar. But the concept really came alive through stories, as many things do. Storytelling is powerful. And one story captured the imagination of Western culture for over 1,000 years. The Book of Tobit, likely written around 225 to 175 BCE, tells of a blind man named Tobit who sends his son Tobias on a dangerous 500-mile journey to reclaim a debt. Tobias hires a guide named Azariah to protect him on the road. They travel together, face dangers, catch a miraculous fish whose organs later help both Tobias's father and his future wife. Only at the end does Azariah reveal his true identity. He is the archangel Raphael sent by God to walk beside Tobias. This story became widely popular in Renaissance art, and painters like Titian, that's Titian, and Perugino couldn't stop depicting the scene. The young traveler, the angel companion, the small, faithful dog, the fish. Why? Because it gave form to what people longed for, not a distant God issuing commandments from heaven, but a protective presence walking the road beside you, looking exactly like a helpful stranger and making the journey less lonely and less dangerous. That's the image that stuck. The guardian angel as companion, as guide, as the one who's been there all along, whether you knew it or not. Angels feel accessible. They feel personal. They don't demand we resolve the problem of evil or reconcile free will with omniscience or explain why suffering exists. They offer something simpler and more immediate, the possibility that we're seen, known, protected, that we matter enough to warrant a guardian. Humans from the dawn of self-awareness have instinctively known their fragility. This unique consciousness, our unique consciousness, which allows us to dream of tomorrow, simultaneously exposes us to an acute awareness of all that could end us: predators, disease, the malevolence of others, and the cold indifference of the cosmos. So in response, we imagined protection, not just walls and weapons, but spiritual protection, beings who watched over us, who cared about our survival, who stood between us and chaos. This wasn't neurotic or irrational. This is profoundly human. There's a sociologist named Peter Berger who had a phrase for this, and in his 1969 book, A Rumor of Angels, he wrote about how even as institutional religion was declining, people were continuing to seek what he called, quote, signals of transcendence, so moments and experiences that point beyond the merely material world. Guardian angels serve as one of those persistent signals. They give us the comfort of the divine without requiring us to work through all the difficulties of the divine. So, how have angels changed over time? Because, oh, how they have changed. Guardian angels haven't stayed frozen in biblical form. They've shapeshifted dramatically across cultures and eras, revealing as much about us as about any celestial reality. C.S. Lewis noticed this evolution, and he frankly didn't like what he saw. In his preface to Paradise Lost, Lewis traced how angels in visual art, quote, steadily degenerated from powerful figures carrying the presence and authority of heaven to what he sarcastically called the frigid Horus of a tea table paradise. I think that's funny. The modern angels, Lewis wrote, were, quote, shapes so feminine that they avoid being voluptuous only by their total insipidity. So he did not like the Victorian depiction of angels. He noted pointedly, in scripture, the visitation of an angel is always alarming. It has to begin by saying, "Fear not." The Victorian angel looks as if it were going to say, "There, there." So, fear not versus there, that's the transformation in a nutshell. So, what happened? The Victorian era infantilized angel imagery, turning cosmic messengers into cherubic decorations. Angels became cute, comforting, safe. They showed up on greeting cards and advertisements. This wasn't an accident. It served the emerging consumer culture perfectly. Angels that inspire awe don't sell products. Angels that make you feel cozy do. Then came the 20th century and Hollywood's reimagining. Film and television angels became individualistic, flawed, and rebellious. In movies like It's a Wonderful Life and the TV series Highway to Heaven and Touched by an Angel, angels had to earn their wings through good deeds. They made mistakes, they questioned God, they valued earthly pleasures, and sometimes even chose to become human to experience sensory joy. The late 20th and early 21st century brought New Age personalization. So, New Age spirituality really takes off. And guardian angels become less about God's plan and more about personal empowerment. Author Doreen Virtue popularized angel numbers in the early 2000s. I remember my mom having so many Doreen Virtue books, and they were all about angels. And the idea that repeated number sequences like 1111, 222, 444 were coded messages from your guardian angel. And this represented a shift from institutional religion to what scholars call the spiritual authority of the self. You don't need to be a priest or go to church to interpret divine messages. Your guardian angel speaks directly to you through patterns. I mentioned Doreen Virtue. She's an interesting individual in that she did all this angel number work and created a lot of oracle decks, and really did popularize the angel number thing. But she's now, I believe, a born-again Christian. She does not want Hay House selling her decks and her books or anything like that. So she doesn't believe in any of the stuff that she once did. And I think that's just an interesting side note. So the evolution of angels is really interesting. The imagery has really changed over time. So think from the stone carvings to the Renaissance oil paintings to Hollywood films and TV, but the need remains constant. We keep reimagining guardian angels to match what we need them to be. So where does this really leave us? Have we shaped guardian angels to fit our needs rather than encountering them as they actually are? When we imagine angels, are we connecting with ancient spiritual realities or creating comforting psychological constructs? And here's what I've learned from years of working evidentially with spirit while valuing intellectual rigor. Maybe both can be true. Guardian angels exist at a crossroads. Ancient religion meets ancient religious tradition meets New Age personalization, scholarly skepticism meets lived mystical experience, psychological need meets genuine spiritual encounter. And rather than choosing sides, what if we could hold the complexity of this idea of guardian angels? Understanding that angel numbers might be apophenia, so that's your brain's pattern recognition system, doesn't eliminate the possibility of meaningful synchronicity. Recognizing that we project our cultural values onto spiritual concepts doesn't negate the inexplicable moments of guidance and protection that millions of people report. I've encountered too many of those moments myself. The client who felt a hand on her shoulder right before stepping into traffic, the parent who heard the voice of their deceased child's voice warning them to check the stove, the driver who felt someone turn the wheel. Are these guardian angels, intuition, deceased loved ones? The answer might be yes. What if guardian angels are both psychological archetypes and real presences, both cultural projections and genuine encounters, both shaped by human need and transcending our understanding? The need for protection, for companionship, for reassurance that we're not alone in a dangerous cosmos, in a dangerous world. That's as ancient as consciousness itself. That same need drove Mesopotamians to carve the lamassu figures at their gates 3,000 years ago, and it drives people today to look for angel numbers on their iPhones. Same forces, different technologies. And whether guardian angels are celestial beings assigned by God, archetypal aspects of our own higher consciousness, helping presences from the spirit realm, or some mysterious combination we don't have the language for yet, doesn't matter. If the experience of feeling protected, guided, and accompanied through life is real, if it brings comfort and courage, if it helps people to survive, does the metaphysical mechanism matter more than the lived reality? That's a good question, I think. So, I'm not suggesting that we abandon discernment. We should absolutely question whether we're projecting our needs onto spiritual concepts. That's an interesting thing to contemplate. But we should be curious about psychological explanations as well. We should examine how culture shapes our beliefs. But we should also honor what we experience, the moments that don't fit neat explanations, the inexplicable protection we sometimes feel, the synchronicities that feel too specific to dismiss, the sense of presence that persists across millennia and across cultures. Maybe the most honest relationship with guardian angels is the one that holds both the skepticism and the openness, both the psychological awareness and the spiritual receptivity, both intellectual rigor and wonder. So I invite you to bring both your experiences and your questions to this exploration. Your moments of inexplicable protection, your gut feelings that changed everything, your sense of being watched over, guided, and held. Also bring your skepticism, your awareness that humans create comforting stories, your knowledge that our brains are wired to find patterns even in randomness, your questions about how projection and cultural conditioning can impact our view of spiritual concepts. The guardian angels you encounter, whether in prayer, synchronicity, art, dreams, or sudden moments of protection, won't fit neatly into quote kind of like real or imaginary. They'll be far more interesting than that. Because ultimately, our fascination with guardian angels reveals something profound about the human condition, our vulnerability, our loneliness, our stubborn hope that consciousness extends beyond what we can see, and our deep intuition that love, in some form, surrounds us even when we feel most alone. That intuition has persisted for at least 3,000 years across every culture that's grappled with human fragility and the mystery of existence. It's woven through Mesopotamian palaces, the Zoroastrian cosmology, biblical narratives, Renaissance masterpieces, Victorian greeting cards in Hollywood films, New Age workshops, and other things. And the images change, but the need doesn't. My childhood understanding wasn't wrong after all. Guardian angels do exist outside the boundaries of any single religion. They're older than Christianity, broader than any tradition. They're part of the human conversation with mystery, with protection, and with the hope that we matter enough to be watched over. Whether they're watching from heaven, emerging from our own consciousness, or bridging dimensions we don't understand, or some combination of all three, well, that's the question we get to sit with. And maybe, just maybe, the not knowing is part of the gift. Now, I want to say that this exploration focuses specifically on guardian angels and their journey through Western religious and cultural history. But if you're curious about spirit guides and their diverse origins across indigenous, African, Asian, and shamanic traditions and how they differ from guardian angels, stay tuned. I'll be exploring spirit guides in my next episode, and that's another really big one. I get asked about spirit guides all the time. And if you've been around, you know that I try to take the approach of talking about my experiences, the experience I share with my clients, but also I like to look at the history. I like to look at the stories. I try to take a broader perspective of what could this all mean. And of course, I can't include and encapsulate everything, which is why I share it with you, because I'd love to know what you think and what your ideas are regarding some of these pretty awesome topics that are big topics in spirituality. And I just don't think we always give them the attention that they deserve. Diving into the history of guardian angels, I don't know about you, but I learned so much. And it was fun to learn that this idea of winged guardians was so ancient and so old, and that it is connected perhaps to this human desire to be watched over and protected. So there's just a lot to unpack here. So I crafted some journal prompts for reflection around the idea of guardian angels. So take time with these questions, um, sort of sit with them and just see what emerges. It's a way to go a little bit deeper on this topic. And let's kind of dive into some of them. So, when have you felt inexplicably protected or guided? What were the circumstances, and how did you interpret the experience at the time versus now? And do you have a relationship with the concept of guardian angels? So, I mentioned that I've always, since I was a kid, I just always felt that they were real. I don't really know how that came into my consciousness, but it did. And I still feel that way today. And how has that relationship evolved over your lifetime? Think of a time when you noticed a meaningful sign or synchronicity. How do you hold both a psychological explanation so that we recognize patterns, our brain is always doing that, and the possibility of genuine spirit connection or spiritual connection? What images come to mind when you think of guardian angels? I know I have really specific ones. And where do those images come from? Childhood, religion, art, movies, or your own experiences? When do you most long for protection? And what does your need for a guardian angel reveal about how you experience the world? If you knew for certain that a loving presence was always watching over you, how might that change the way you move through your life? Can you hold the possibility that guardian angels are both physiologically explainable, so by that pattern recognition thing that our brains do and other things, and spiritually real? And what does it feel like in your body to hold both possibilities at once? What would you lose if guardian angels were just psychology? And what would you lose if they were just literal celestial beings? So, some stuff to think about. If you want to review my sources where I got some of this information, and if you want to look at these journal prompts in a more in-depth way, you can find them at bloomingwand.com. Click explore and go to the blog. You will find a transcript of this episode there, along with my resources and further reading. I've included links. You'll also see the journal prompts. So drop a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe, or shoot me an email at emily@bloomingwand.com and let me know what you think about guardian angels. And you know what I'm going to say now. Take good care of yourselves, get those journals out, and I'll see you soon.